and thank you for joining us. My name is Dan Steinfield, head of school here at Delaware County Christian School, home of the DC Knights. And this is the Roundtable, where each month we talk with up-and-coming leaders at Delaware County Christian School that are moving forward our strategic plan and our vision. Today, we are fortunate to have with us Jonathan Mindrebo, our Director of Finance, and Damon Swaner, our Board Treasurer. Thank you for joining us today for this episode, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Dan. Jonathan, why don't we start with you, and if you could just share a little bit about what is your role as Director of Finance, and then let's start high level. Our topic today is talking a little bit about the financial state of DC and a lot of the projects that we've been doing lately. We thought it would be great to help our parents learn a little bit more about what happens behind the scenes as they see turf fields and student unions and things like that happening. So share a little bit about your role as Director of Finance, and then what is the general financial state of DC today?
Sure. So Director of Finance, I'd say my primary role is to manage the resources of the school. So as helping collect the money that's coming in, and then how do we spend that money and how do we track it? So just being good stewards of our funds for DC. Yeah. So where's DC at now? I'd say DC is in a strong position. I'd say heavily impacted by our student enrollment increase. So over the last 2 years, we've increased about 200 students. Which brings in additional revenue, but we also have expenses that go alongside that, so it doesn't all just go into our savings. But with that enrollment increase, we've been able to put some money aside to reinvest in DC. So even the Orchard building at the lower campus is partially funded by some of that, and then other capital projects to help reinvest into the school and help sustain the future of the school in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Damon, we'll turn to you next. And in addition to the question I'm going to ask you, maybe you can just introduce yourself a little bit. How many years have you been on the board, the role that you're in? But one of our big strategic initiatives over the last 3 years has been sustainability. Maybe you can share just a little bit about why this is so important, not just for DC, but for Christian schools today, paying attention to long-term sustainability. Why is that so important?
Sure. So thanks, Dan. So I'm Damon Swaner. I am the treasurer of the board for DC and the chair of the finance committee. I've been on the board for a little over 6 years now, and I've been the treasurer for most of those 6 years. So it's been exciting to watch some of the developments as DC has shored up its finances over the past few years. And our role on the board is to help think about not just the sustainability of DC now and in the near term, but over the long term as well. And will we be able to continue to invest and deliver on our mission in various economic cycles, ups and downs, as various changes in how parents are thinking about Christian education, how parents are thinking about educating their children, church involvement, demographic changes, all those things as they change over time. We want DC to continue to be there delivering on its mission.
That's great. And can you give maybe one or two examples of steps that DC has taken over the past 3 years in this area to further strengthen our sustainability?
Sure. So as we think about setting the budget for the school, we wanted to make sure the budget was flexible enough to withstand some volatility. For example, we have 2 campuses with lots of infrastructure that needs to be maintained over time, and we'd rather not be doing that under duress or as things need to be immediately fixed, but how can we invest strategically over time to invest in the upkeep of our facilities? Another thing that we've tried to do is carve out space in the budget for strategic investments, whether that be programs, other types of facilities that need to be upgraded, and to be intentional about it so that as we have some room in the budget, it gives you, as the head of the school, the flexibility to say, okay, these are the things we're going to tackle next, and we've planned for that accordingly.
Yeah, that's great. Jonathan, we'll come back to you, and we just completed, as most of our families know, a really successful endowment campaign, the Cultivating the Promise Endowment Campaign. Under the leadership of Allison Stinger, our development team, we were able to bring our endowment from $6 million to over $20 million. Praise the Lord for that great success. And can you share a little bit for our families, how does that endowment positively impact our operating budget every year? Why is it so important to see that healthy endowment continue to grow?
Sure. I'd say the two most significant areas that it impacts is our faculty and staff salaries, and then student scholarships. So people gave towards both of those items in the endowment campaign So it's allowing us to give more money to our families through these scholarships to attend DC. And it's also increasing the salaries of our faculty and staff so they can serve here for a long period of time and be able to take care of their own families from an income standpoint.
Yeah, that's great. And Damon, to kind of tag on to that, the endowment campaign was very important for the board. I know over the last few years, the board has really felt it was important to see this campaign be successful and care for our faculty and staff. Why is that so important to you and our other board members?
Well, the board saw it as critical that we are able to attract and retain quality teachers and administrators so that we can deliver on our mission over time. And we saw the endowment campaign as a way to provide another predictable, stable source of funding for our budget. When you think of how the school is funded, predominantly through tuition, which has some ability to be stable and predictable for our parents, but also fundraising, which you have to fundraise every year for things, is important. It's an important part of our revenue model. But to have a third source of revenue that we can count on every year, and that is income from the endowment. So that big increase that we've seen in the endowment has given us much more flexibility to do more in terms of salaries and financial aid.
Yeah, that's great. One other question for you, Damon. We've seen almost $10 million in capital improvements over the last 4 years here at DC. Again, praise God for his provision and our ability to do that. Do you want to share just a little bit about how the board was able to fund these projects? We get asked a lot, is this going to impact tuition as we do these projects? Are we going to see the school take on potential debt? Do you want to share a little bit about why the board approved these projects and how they were funded?
The majority of these projects, the turf field, the student union, were funded through donations from a very generous donor base that we have as a school that we're very blessed to have. Those campaigns all raised the money fully that were needed for those projects. We have other projects, like Jonathan mentioned, like the orchard, where we're able to fund, maybe it's a smaller project, where we're able to fund through short-term debt that we're able to pay off through the strategic money that we've allocated in our budget over the next few years. So each project is different. We make a strategic decision of how we're going to fund that, but the goal of all those things is to fund that in ways that do not impact tuition.
Yeah, and whether it's a campaign or, like you mentioned, a small amount of low-term debt, we're talking a 2 or 3 year cycle, start to finish. Right.
That's right.
So either the funds are brought in through donors or the short-term loan is paid off in a 3-year period at the most. So
That's right.
it positions DC to be in just a position of strength as we plan these projects and as we move forward. Jonathan, as we look at the business office, I know you've worked really hard to build in efficiencies over the last year. And so what are some ways that you've increased efficiency and also reduced expenses over the last year or two to continue to see us just add to that ability to be sustainable?
Yeah, over the last year, we really focused in on trying to digitize the business office. So I think the best example is we've gone from probably three drawer file cabinets to now one two drawer file cabinets. So even over the last year, in every area, so different systems that impact our families, that impact our staff, that impact our different vendors, trying to move everything digital and moving away from paper has been our goal, and it's really allowed us as a team to work more efficiently as a team.
Yeah, that's great. And the technology available today to do that is really remarkable in terms of linking even something as simple as a teacher that has an expense and uses a school credit card now takes a picture of it, uploads it, and your system automatically finds it and connects it. It's really remarkable what technology is able to do today.
Yeah.
That's great. Damon, we'll come back to you. And, we've talked about having some predictability in income streams. The endowment's certainly one example of that. It's a predictable income stream. What are other alternative sources of revenue or other sources of revenue the board has talked about, is interested in increasing as well, so that we find alternative revenue sources to fund the school?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we've been thinking about is just the development of our pre-K programs that we've built on the lower campus over the past few years, because we think of that as, one, a strategic opportunity to expose more children at a younger age to our mission and what we're able to deliver here, but also to build a stronger base that can grow with us over time. So we see that as an opportunity, not just in and of itself, as a source of kind of revenue, but also as a feeder for all of the programs that we have downstreams. And that's been a big success over the past few years as we've made that investment. And other things that we've talked about, like the orchard and other things that we're investing in, those are all facilitated by that investment we've made in the pre-K programs.
Yeah, it's a great example, and it creates a pipeline that feeds our lower school, middle school, and high school. And so let's talk about that. With that investment made, where is DC going? What would be the board's 10-year enrollment plan, and what's next on the capital project front for us?
Sure. Well, we need to think about the space that we have available to us and how many students can we fit into that space between the upper and lower campus. And over the past few years, as our enrollment has grown, we have to start thinking about what's the maximum that we can even incorporate. As we think about that, that number is probably somewhere a little bit north of 900, maybe 950 across the two campuses. So to be able to unlock all of that potential that we have on these campuses, there are some additional investments we think we need to make. So the board is starting to think now about what other investments might need to be made on both campuses in order for us to be able to get to that 950, but do it in a way that is seamless. It doesn't feel crowded or cramped. You know, as we think even beyond that, we have to start thinking of other models, and those things are just kind of in the beginning stage right now of thinking, if we wanted to continue to grow and reach more people beyond that, what are the other types of models we'd have to consider? And there's lots of those things that we can think about, whether it's other campuses, whether partnerships with other schools, and all those are on the table. But I think for the short term right now, it's how do we maximize the space we have?
That's right. And it's exciting that right now we're 822. Next year we're predicting about 870 in our total enrollment pre-K 2 through 12. And so we're right on track to reach that optimal number in the 900s and see our campus utilized to the fullest extent. It's very exciting. So,
Agreed.
well, I appreciate you guys taking time to join me at the round table. This is a topic that we don't talk a lot about, and we don't get a chance to talk a lot about at DC, but I think it's an important topic, and I think one that has been very informative for our families to hear from you two today. And I just would say, as head of school, opportunity to serve along Jonathan Mindrebo, overseeing our finances, and as he said, our stewardship of our finances, and Damon, to you representing the board, it's really a joy and it's really an honor to be able to serve with both of you. Two individuals and a board as a larger entity that really desires to see DC flourish, and a strong expertise in managing our finances so that we can flourish and avoid those crises that can come, and a real visionary board that has been so supportive of us. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Round Table. We're so thankful that you tuned in, and catch us for our next episode. Thanks.